the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening. Welcome to the second part of the Rangers Journal coverage for the League Cup final. Unfortunately, not the result we all wanted. Finished 3-3 at full time. Extra time couldn't split the teams, and then Rangers go on to lose the resulting penalty shootout 5-4. Doug, how are you feeling after that one?
Deflated, obviously. Penalties are always a gut punch when they don't go your way, and so it's been today. So disappointed, upset, but at the same time, I'm also very proud of the team. I thought they put in an excellent shift. I do think that was a different performance to what we've seen in the past, and it does show potential for the rebuild, to use the magic word that we have. I know that, just obviously in our chat, which you'll have seen, I think people are still split in two camps. There are some that that game had to be a win or nothing, and then there's those that I think are willing to see how we can do in the. Obviously, we've got another Old Firm coming up quick, so I'm in that camp. I think today showed enough for me that they were still trending in the right direction, but that trend is going to have to start including wins, because otherwise more people are not going to give Clermont any more time.
Yeah, and I think it's 0-7 now for Clermont. Not great. I think in times past that probably would be the bullet for the manager, to be quite honest. Totally agree with what you're saying about the two camps, and I think that's kind of replicated not just in our chat but in social media world as well. I think for me, we got absolutely scudded last time out. It was 3-0 and it could easily have been a lot worse. I think you can absolutely see an improvement from that, like you've said. We did go toe-to-toe with them. Ultimately, went to the lottery of a penalty shootout, which we lost, and I'm sure we'll come on to kind of some of the circumstances of that penalty shootout. It is in the right direction, but I just wonder at what point, do we say enough is enough? If we have another glorious failure in the January Old Firm, does that give them a bit more time? For me, 0-7 is pretty horrific, Doug. Just looking at the game itself then, obviously we went ahead. I thought we started really brightly, but we kind of seemed to fade a wee bit, sort of middle of the first half, but then we did press on a bit more. We showed some good kind of intent to pick up that ball, and Bajrami picking up the rebound. I think it was very similar to his Mould goal, in that he was kind of right place following up on it. When that first goal went in, were you quite positive then, or were you always quite concerned that Celtic could come back into it?
Yeah, I thought we'd, like you say, we played well in the first half. I'd said in the pre-match that I wanted us to come out with the same kind of mentality that we did against Tottenham, and I thought we did that. We were really pincering their midfield. We really stopped McGregor getting on the ball. That was forcing them to play long balls in, and they did still get a little bit of joy from that nonetheless. But we really, I felt, disrupted their midfield game excellently in the first half. And like you say, we obviously get the goal eventually. I did expect Celtic to come out in the second half and come at us with a bit of fresh impetus, which is what happened. And we really needed to try and ride that storm and hopefully get a second and push forward. We unfortunately didn't do that. But I think the difference between today's game and games gone past is when they got their quick fire double, which remains a bit of a problem for us, losing two quick goals, is that we didn't give up. And I think that the team today showed a lot more fight than a lot of teams in the past have, which kept us in the game. Got back in it. They scored at what looked like was going to be the winner. I think most of us had. I thought the game was gone, but straight away we hit back. So I think that was really good. and a big positive.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're bang on. It would have been very easy when they got those two for us. What we've seen in the past is for the team to kind of retreat into their shells a bit, and suddenly it's 3-4. We didn't. We kind of carried on, managed to equalise. I think the sucker punch for me, and it was something that you called out on the pre-match actually, was Nicholas Kuhn's third. And I have to admit, at that point, I probably thought that was it. I thought, probably that was going to be the winner. All credit for Danilo for, I think it was pretty much his first touch, scoring with the header. Do you think that fight, and I mean, obviously we've lost a cup, which is pretty raw at the moment, but do you think that kind of fight shows that the players are actually playing for the manager?
Yeah, I think, like I said, they looked up for the game. And although after Celtic went ahead, I think the heads went down for a little bit, they picked themselves back up. And let's say the second half of the second half showed a lot of fight again. I thought the latter part of the game, it was very much back and forth. One team pushing, the other team pushing. Celtic maybe did have the edge slightly. They've got a settled team with excuse me, a settled team and a settled way of playing, and over time that kind of took a bit, and we started to tire as well. Though I thought Clement managed substitutions reasonably well, he kind of held off a little bit longer perhaps than I might have done, but he brought on fresh legs when we needed them, and he looked like he was going to go all in until we got that equaliser as well. And then again, he kind of held back and rethunk things. So, I thought it was reasonably well played from the manager as well. We just, Celtic are used to winning games, used to pushing themselves over the line, and we kind of excuse me. We need to. It's literally killing me, this loss.
Yeah.
We need to learn that. We need to learn that last push. And like I say, when it got to penalties, it could have gone either way, but it was just it just wasn't to be.
Yeah, that's it. Welcome, Scotty. Cheers for joining, mate.
No bother at all, boys. No bother at all. How are we after that?
Gutted.
Yeah.
Sucker punch, wasn't it?
Yep.
What's your kind of feelings after that, mate?
It's kind of hard to sum it all up, to be honest with you, Dave. It's performance-wise, it was a remarkable improvement. We need to say we should have probably seen this performance in September in Monu. In the first Old Firm game of the season. I think that's fair to say. I've been reading the comments. There's an awful lot of folks saying they want to come on out and stuff, and I can definitely empathise with that he is, as we've been saying, we're kicking the can down the road, but this ultimately, Dave, is a transition season. I think that had he come out and says it at the beginning of the season, then everybody would have been strapped in for this, and we would probably be saying that that's good progress today, but it's still very raw just now. It's another trophy that's not come back at Ibrox in the trophy cabinet. That's the facts here. Now, moving forward, I think we need to stick with him just now. And his trial, if you want to call it that, is Ibrox in January against Celtic. If he doesn't beat them, he's gone. He needs to go. But in terms of the context of this week, this is a lot better than what I originally thought I was going to be sitting here. Played really, really well against Spurs, and there's been a remarked improvement against that mob today. So it's not all bad, but it's very raw and it hurts. And like I say, the cold facts are the League Cup's not Ibrox.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And I think just thinking back to when the kind of semi-final fixtures were played, we got through, we knew we were going to be facing them. I think my initial kind of thought was, oh, Christ, we're going to get absolutely battered. As I said before, I think we did go toe-to-toe with them, but ultimately a Rangers team and a Rangers manager is going to be judged by trophies in the cabinet, and as you've said, that's another one that's no coming back to us. Doug, I want to get your thoughts on the extra time period, because I get we were tired, but we just seemed to really kind of retreat back, and we were almost inviting them onto us and just it felt like to me very early on in that extra time we kind of accepted that it was going to penalties and we'd try our luck with that.
I think so. I think the worry of making a mistake or pushing and getting caught because of that tiredness, I think, sort of started to take over. We settled in, like you say, deeper. The shape became very compact and very rigid, whereas players were more willing to push a bit more. And you saw, that second half. By the second half of extra time, it almost had settled into a kind of a training match. Celtic were just kind of knocking it about and trying to get chances, but even they weren't going like absolute hell for leather either. So I think they'd kind of tired, and the fans got a bit quiet as well. So I kind of almost feel like everyone was kind of strapped in for the penalties certainly by the half time of extra time, because it really the thistle really had come out of the game by that point.
That's it. And I just want to kind of touch on the penalty side of it then, because yes, penalties is absolutely a lottery. I think there was two key things that stood out for me, and I know Fine Mitch will be coming for me if he's in the comments, but how in the name of God does your number 9 not take a penalty, Scotty? You're on mute, mate.
I know, mate. I know. Get kids in the background. What was you say there? Sorry.
Basically, your thoughts on the fact that Dessers wasn't one of the penalty takers?
Aye, I know. It's, to me, if I'm in that situation, I'm a manager, I'm asking who's confident to take penalties, and you kind of let the players call it for themselves. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. It's just an opinion. They should have stepped up to take one, absolutely. Our chat's basically going nuts because Ridvan stepped up to take a penalty, but if he's went to Gaffer and he says, "No, I feel all right here. I've got this," then manager trusts his players. You know what I mean? It's just one of them things. It was a piss poor penalty for Ridvan. Let's be honest about it. But fine margins and all that, and but fell short again today.
Doug, would you have picked Ridvan as one of yours based on that game? Because I'm not saying he was awful, but I don't think he was amazing either. He did kind of struggle to get into that one. So would you have had him as one of your penalty takers, regardless of what he says?
The thing with penalties is, I mean, I personally, unless someone's having a bad game, I maybe wouldn't pick them for mentality reasons. But for me, the match itself doesn't really have much bearing on who I would be picking for my penalty takers, because it's a unique thing taking a penalty. There's the two aspects. You've got to obviously be technically proficient. So, are you good at taking penalties? That's step one. And majority of players will be decent to some level, because you obviously have the potential that they all take. But you'll have your ones that are better than others. But then arguably the more important part is it's fine that you can knock them in at training. But then do you have the mentality to do it at the pressure moments, at the big time, when potentially you might be in front of a hostile crowd? We had the advantage that it was on our side of the stadium. So I mean, for me, I don't look too much into the fact that Dessers didn't take or that Yilmaz does take. I don't know how they are at penalties in general between the two of them. For all I know, Yilmaz normally takes a great penalty and maybe just didn't do today, but I don't know. You do generally expect your strikers, so their job is to strike the ball, to know where goals are. So yeah, it is maybe a bit of a surprise, but then again, we also had our right back. Our right back takes the majority of our penalties, so maybe it's not weird that our left back would. But I'm not going to criticise it too much, just because I feel it's one of those things that I don't know enough, because like the penalties are all trained, in training. We only see one guy take penalties on a regular basis, so it's difficult, I think, for me to criticise them. I mostly feel sorry for Yilmaz, because obviously he's going to take the brunt in a lot of people's eyes for being the one that's missed. He looked immediately like he was about to burst out of tears as he was walking away. And I feel for any footballer in that position, to be honest. But yeah, I think I understand why people expect to see Dessers there being a striker. But as I say, it's hard to judge. Like you say, it might be a case that he's. I'm not a fan of the idea that you just go to your players and say who's up for it. I think a manager should know and needs to be able to know when someone maybe is fronting up and saying, "Yeah, I'm up for it," but actually isn't. And I think a manager's role needs to be able to pick out things like that as well. But yeah, as I say, I'm not going to criticise anyone too far either way, because I don't think I know enough about how they set up, what did they do in advance, were they pre-planned. I mean, we're talking about Yilmaz. Butland took a penalty. To me, that was the bigger thing. I was totally bamboozled by that one. The fact that he was up before Dessers is a bigger thing for me than Yilmaz.
Took a good pen, but
he did. Yep.
Just looking at a few of the players then. Obviously, one of the big goals was Tav before Sterling. Scotty, how do you think Tav got on? Did he warrant that starting place, or would you expected better?
I think Tav's in form just now, Dave. He deserved to start a game. I don't think Tav wasn't at fault for any of the goals. Like, I think there was maybe one time in the first half that him and Balogun got a wee bit mixed up and nearly lost the ball down at the corner. But apart from that, I thought Tav was all right. It is what it is with Tav. He's an enigma. Half the support like him, half the support don't. It's never going to change. You know what I mean? So I just want to get my toppings worth in on Butland taking a penalty. Somebody says higher up in the comments that it sums us up as a club and it's shambolic. Butland's your vice captain and he hit the best penalty. But I don't see anything wrong. That's football these days. Keepers step up and hit penalties because you can't study whether goalkeeper's going to kick a ball. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to kind of get that up there. Like, I don't see what the problem is with Butland taking out, and I don't think it's a bad reflection on the club. I mean, is it going to turn into a bit of a Dessers bashing over the next couple of days? I would imagine so, because your number nine's not went up to hit a penalty, but he had one in the Champions League qualifier last season. Was it against PSV maybe? Servette maybe? I can't remember. But he did hit a penalty. Dessers does hit penalties. Why he didn't today, I've got no clue. But back on to Tav, Dave, it was an acceptable performance, but it's another game where Tav's been captain and we've not got that trophy in the trophy cabinet. And unfortunately, because he's captain, he's going to get stick for it.
Yep, totally agree, mate. And Doug, bit further forward, same side for Václav Černý. What did you reckon to him today? Because he was a bit quiet for my liking compared to what we've seen recently.
Yeah, perhaps. I still think he had a decent game. I thought our front line were pretty busy. They tried to move and interchange, and they did get joy out of that. I actually thought the one that had the most mixed game was Zigerman. I thought there were times where he was excellent, but then, and particularly later on in the game, I thought we saw the naivety and the sort of the fact that he's a young player. He started to snatch at things a little bit. I thought I would potentially have taken him off slightly earlier to bring on Danilo, but I mean, obviously, he still had a good stint. He's key in the goal. So and he, in fact, does he not cross for one of the other goals, or he's involved in one of the other ones as well? So he had a good game. I thought everyone played well, to be honest. They all had times where they were up and down. Like I say, first half, I thought Diamante and Raskin were absolutely superb. Like I said earlier, in terms of cutting off that midfield, I thought they were a cut above everyone else on the pitch. Dio was a bit more up and down in the second half, but everyone had their moments, and most of the players that came on were reasonable as well. Dessers really didn't get up to an awful much, but obviously Danilo comes on, scores equaliser. So there was maybe, as I said again in the pre-match, I was a little worried in terms of if we were chasing the game, did we have enough coming on to change it? I did feel like that did come to bear a little bit. If we'd maybe had just a little bit more quality in terms of attacking players. Dell came on and did absolutely nothing. I'm not sure if he even touched the ball. So things like that, I think, the fact that he comes on as well ahead of McCausland, I mean, I'm starting to worry that the manager's has gone off McCausland. I mean, that could just be a positional thing, but yeah, the fact that he comes on instead, let's say that's I think 2 or 3 or 4 substitute appearances where Dell comes on and he's just there, doesn't really do much. So a little bit in terms of quality, maybe lacking there. That's something that we can obviously address and something that we can still build. As I say, if you're building the mentality back up, because I do think that's something that we've talked about over the past couple of seasons, the lack of winning mentality that they've had in these games. So you're going to have to build that up. So if this is a sign of that, doing that, I mean, I saw there's a particularly unhappy bear in the comments who used the phrase that a lot of people have used a lot in the last couple of years. We said these players have done it again. Well, half of these players, that was only their second Old Firm. You've got a lot of players that have come in this season, and some of them didn't do so well in the first one. Some of them didn't play in the first one, but they've done better there. So I mean, some of the players are newer and are developing, but yeah, I think it's that little bit of lack of quality that may be told in terms of the being able to change the game near the end.
Yeah, and I think looking forward, then, we've kind of touched on this was an improvement on what we saw in September. That's great. Did you see enough today, Doug, to make you think that we have a good shot of winning that Old Firm derby in the new year?
Absolutely. I mean, we're one penalty away from beating them today, so you could that game could absolutely have turned. I mean, you could argue the turning point was that 4-on-1. We had a 4-on-1. Eggman pushed it forward to Barami, and he fails to get it past the only defender they had back, which is Carter Vickers. If he gets that ball across, it was Cherney, and I'm assuming it was probably Hadji, but I can't remember exactly. One of them almost certainly scores that. If we score that, I think the game then could have changed dramatically. Our confidence would have been well up. They'd have been forced to really push at us, and we could have potentially then caught them on the counter similarly. So that was a big moment. And I still think we're a little bit off at times when it comes to those moments and that clinicalness. And again, that comes with better players. We're all saying we want to get a better striker in January, maybe get a number 6 in. These little players that could make the difference in moments like that when you need that moment of just that little extra bit of quality that we perhaps missed and could still add to. And like you say, we talk about, I think I'm a big proponent of context is key. So again, if we're going back to this idea that we've brought in Clement to make this change of an era, if we call it, let's call it the Tavernier era, just because he's been here for the longest. He will be a player that will move almost certainly at the end of this season, and he's kind of the last one of that era. And we've charged this manager with changing that. So although he's 7-0, at least some of the first few of them, he's dealing with those old players, the ones that we'd already said weren't good enough. So we have to let him get rid of them, and we have to let him bring in new players. He's never going to get it right in one go, so you're going to have to give him a little bit of time then to bring in some more. So to me, that says January and potentially the end of next season. But he needs to still show these developments. We need to, at the very bare minimum, this needs to be the standard in every Old Firm going forward, that we make them fight to win if that's what's going to happen. Because they're still, as I say, they're still a really good team. We have to remember that we are chasing them. We have to build to them. And so that has to be the minimum, because, as I say, we've let them win far too easily in the past. So he's now set a standard where he's taking them to the very, very wire. So that will now be the bare minimum in January. Anything less, and then, like you say, he could go, because anything less is means that today might have been a fluke, and today cannot be a fluke. Today has to become part of the new normal, which is building towards beating them with regularity.
Yeah, and Scotty, same question to yourself, just to get your thoughts on it, mate. Do you see enough, or did you see enough today that gives you kind of confidence going into that New Year derby, or would you agree with a lot of the comments that we're seeing that, regardless of how it came about today, was still a failure and he should go?
Well, you've kind of summed it up perfectly in your question, to be honest with you, Dave, because it's either there's two tosses to the coin here. There's either you take the progress because we're in a transition season and we seem to close the gap in a performance base today. We made a couple of errors for a few goals. But we come back, and that's something this Rangers team hasn't done against Celtic. They've not came back. So for that aspect, for performance, that's progress. And should we be happy about it? Probably not. But that is where we are. And on the other side of it, you can look at it and say it's another cup final that we've lost, and it's not good enough. So it's really I'm not yet formed an opinion on it because this still kind of hurts, if you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, we lost on penalties today. There, John's just come out of comments and says Celtic were awful, still won. We made Celtic awful today. That's how good Rangers were. Nico Raskin was in front of absolutely everything, breaking up the play, etc. I thought Agaman up front, as Doug says, it was indifferent, but it was still better than Dessers. Do you know what I mean? It was still better than having Dessers up front. Danilo, come on, get a great goal. It is what it is. I'll have a proper opinion on it tomorrow when I've calmed down a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's it, mate. It is still very raw. I think for me, I do see the improvement performance-wise, but it's incredibly hard to square the circle that it just isn't good enough. Not for 7, and still going. All right, we performed well today. We lost. If you then get to a point in January where we do the same again and say lose 2-1, that's not for 8, and I just can't see how a manager at Rangers survives that, or the other way around for that matter, a Celtic manager surviving that. I think we'll leave it there, folks. And thanks for everyone that has tuned in. If you've liked what you heard, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Other than that, remember, every night's a Rangers Journal night. Bye-bye.